Hello everyone, welcome. This right here, right now, is the joy of being a live stream coming to you live from Brooklyn, New York. And if you're seeing this anywhere in the world, other than where we are, just come on over to twitch.tv/deepmindfulness and join the conversation. Looks like the bell wants to ring itself. Okay, folks, so welcome. Lovely to see you here. I don't know if anyone notices any particular differences aside from the fact that, that the clock was off again. Welcome, everyone. Okay, let's see what's happening here. Chatting. Yeah, so folks, what is going on? What's happening in your life? We are, if you don't notice, we're coming to you from a slightly different setup. Looks kind of the same to me. Hello. Welcome. As folks are beginning to roll in, let us know where you're coming from. I'm coming from Brooklyn, and this is our new setup, or at least our new back-end setup, which you can't see, so I'm not sure why I'm telling you that that's what's up. So let's see here. Hello from Hanover. Great to see you, Nick. Frank, rather. I get confused redoing the pseudonyms. Lovely. Okay. So, if all's going well, hello, Nate. Good to see you. If all's going well, the image should be super duper clear, which it had not been for a long time. We can do nice blurry bokeh effects and lots of fun stuff. Low latency, excellent. Very clear. Tech support, our friend coming live from Tamil Nadu, India. Welcome, Tamalin. And welcome, Frank. Good, I'm glad. Clear and coming through. If anyone else is joining us, lovely to have you here. Folks, there's been so much going on in the news, so I wanted to make sure you had a good piece of news. We have some updates here on the channel, on the stream. So today's update is that today we're going to be engaging in a little, I think you might know what it's called, a little meditation. And hi from the in-laws in the deep Swedish woods. Well, Nick, it's great to see you there. Good times. Let me know if the audio is coming through clear. We had some questions before. It was sort of bopping up and being a little bit not so, it wasn't coming in quite so clear for everyone. And this new setup has all audios. Everything's different from me. And hopefully nothing is different for you except that it's all working better, ideally. Can I see this? Yes, Tomlin, I can see this. I think maybe you sent a message just to me. AV 10 out of 10. Lovely. Wonderful. I'm glad to hear that. Yeah, we've just made a variety of adjustments. Oh my goodness. Nick, thank you so much for subscribing again. So appreciated. It's so funny. I read your name. I saw like who subscribed, and I read your name, and I read that as Nick. It's so funny. My mind just like this. It's not even like a translation anymore. Let's see. 10 out of 10. Tomlin, thanks. Nick, thank you so much, Nick, for that. I feel like I want to make the little animation when people subscribe be a little longer because I feel like I really do appreciate that. So I want folks to feel that appreciation. So, folks, we're going to be meditating. Can you believe it? We're going to meditate today for 25 minutes. That many minutes. We'll just have a little fun here meditating, and we're going to have some time for your questions. We're going to be playing around. I'm thinking if we can make this slideshow work today, then that would be great too. Oh, hello. Hi there. Stephen from the Tuesday group viewing in Germany. Stephen, welcome. Great to see you here. If this is your first time here, welcome. We're doing some different stuff, so everything technically is a little strange, but hopefully it's actually working better than usual. That would be ideal. And I think we have a little bit of a better grip on the audio. I think I was missing a couple pieces in terms of the audio, and I think the audio should sound a little better. And that way I can like whisper secrets, and you can still hear it. A little secret whisper. And we'll go from there. So folks, great to have folks joining us here. Take a moment to internalize this realization. We have all these people all around the world connecting together, creating this sort of entity, this live stream on December 23rd. Self, this entity that exists unto itself. A self that itself will arise and pass. And yeah, we're going to have a little meditation time. We're going to be continuing our practice around gone. And that's going to be ongoing. We've been doing that for a little while now. And let's see, I have, I got a message here. I want to make sure I'm reading the messages. Okay, so, hey, whoa. This thing's, I'm sure you probably suddenly heard that. You're having a little buffering. So as our tech serve here, our good friend Tamerlan is asking if anyone else is having buffering issues. If so, just let us know. And lovely, okay. Wonderful. Okay. Okay. You have a little bit of buffering. Okay. So, Tamerlan, do you think I should just restart the stream and just go directly to Twitch, or should I just leave it as is for now? We'll just fix it later. Let me know what you think. Okay. So, it looks like today our timer's a little goofy. I thought I could pull off a timer that was something else, but it looks a little goofy right now. It seems like it's not quite working. I'll try and transition, see if it works. Manageable. Okay, I'm gonna. This isn't the real timer, but I just want to see if it works. Well, you can't see me suddenly, so let's try transitioning back. So here's what I'm going to do. Is I'm going to go here, add a little picture of me. Oh, I know what to do. Okay. So we're going to have the timer. Oh, the timer's all black. Okay, so I'm just going to make myself tiny. Okay, so it's going to be a little funny. A little funny for now, for today, until we get our act together. Yeah, that's not right. Everyone's so sweet bearing with us. But I swear we're improving. It is pretty low latency. I'm seeing a little, whoa. This is funny. I just want to show you what I'm seeing. That was not what I intended. Maybe that'll be fun for the meditation portion. I'm not quite sure how that happened, but we're working on it. Transform. There we go. Look at that. Okay. So this will be what our timer will look like for our meditation. See? Everything's good. Okay, cool. Oh, you can't see it. Okay. So this is what it'll look like. Hello. Okay, I'm going to go back to our regular for a minute. Okay. And it looks like it erases the comments. Okay, so in the comments we have, we can use Snaz. Hello, Yorkshire. Oh my God, Lewis is with us today. It's so lovely to see you. Let's see. We'll fix it soon. Okay, folks, so just know that we'll fix that soon. It's all new encoding sort of pieces, so we'll just, we'll make it work. We'll make it work. Okay, so folks, we're going to meditate now for 25 minutes. So turn your phones off, turn your minds on, man, and find a nice comfortable position that you can maintain for the duration of the sit. Do any little stretches you need to. Let's see. When you're ready, we'll begin. Sucker's giving me guff. Give me a sec, folks. So many layers of technicalities here. Well, our recording equipment isn't working now. Well, that's all right. We'll survive. And so folks know we're now setting the playbacks to be permanent on our second YouTube channel, which is YouTube. Well, actually, there's no like hot link yet. If 100 people subscribe, we can change the name, which will make it easier to find. But right now, I think you can find it on our YouTube channel and our linked channels, or we can link it down below. And we're going to begin. So folks, get yourselves ready. Here we go. Beginning by taking a few comfortable deep breaths and just feeling the body rise and fall. Settling back into the part of ourselves that is aware of this current moment. Being sure we know we're watching the movie of experience rather than simply being an unknown character existing in this world without ever recognizing that it's a narrative the mind is producing. We'll begin by sweeping through the body to be sure we're not holding any undue tension. So starting at the top of the head, relax the brow, relax the muscles behind the eyes, letting the face relax and drop just a millimeter. Relaxing the neck and the shoulders, the upper arms, elbows, forearms, wrists, and relaxing the hands. As we may have done this process numerous times, there can be part of the mind that is subtly saying, we've done this a bunch of times, there's no reason to attend to the details of our experience in this moment, waiting for something in the future that will be more important. Imagining right here is where we'll exist for the rest of eternity. Letting go of any imagination that this will change, just soaking into this current experience and coming at it with a kind of acceptance. This is the configuration and experience of the present moment. Letting go of any attempt to control the breath, letting the body breathe naturally. Notice the dynamics of the tightening of the upper chest and upper back as the breath comes and goes. Relaxing the belly and the lower back. Relaxing the hips. Letting go of the muscles deep inside the body. The hips are an area where it can often actually feel a little scary to let go. So letting go deeply in this way. Relaxing the upper legs and knees. The calves and Achilles. The ankles, and relaxing the feet. And we're going to begin by cultivating a bit of awareness. So allowing the mind to expand out, maybe behind us, out to the left and to the right, as though we are leaning back into the mind, allowing the mind to expand left and right. Finding this sweet spot where we can gather all of the body's sense experiences together rather than any one in particular. Looking for this experience of all body sensations together. And within this, beginning to simply know some detail related to the breath. Not collapsing down on the breath sensations, not even needing to find them in particular. We've felt the breath many times. So in this mix of all body sensations, simply bringing up the resolution a little bit on the breath. Noticing that the mind is, to varying degrees, stable or unstable. Knowing that neither of these is better. They're just different. Again, imagining that this was the place where we'll reside for the rest of eternity. Beginning to allow and respect the sensations we're in contact with rather than letting the mind bounce around. In the same way that we can become aware that we're within any particular present moment, becoming aware that this is the constellation of our current experience. If it's helpful, we can label the sensations of the breath as this, and everything else is not this. Or if we're finding a nice balance between the two, we can label that balance all. Now we're going to make a slight transition. I'd like you to simply bring awareness to the soft connection with this current moment, letting go of the breath. Taking a snapshot of the present moment. And just watching it change to become a new moment. So in a sense, we're taking this snapshot of all of our experience at once, holding that, looking at it, and eventually watching it be replaced. And repeating the process. When we take this snapshot of our present moment, we can call this new. And when we observe it begin to decay, as pieces of it change noticeably, we can call this gone. So in our minds it might sound something like new, gone, gone, new, gone, gone. Simply watching our snapshot disappear as it's replaced by other sensory experiences. If we get distracted, coming back, new, gone, gone. And taking the snapshot and holding on to it. This is what the mind often tries to do. Hold on to our present moment, make it last forever. So by intentionally doing this, we can consciously see that this moment always changes, always breaks down, is always replaced. So we're intentionally engaging in a slightly futile act in order to notice the nature of experiencing. We capture the present moment only to see it drift out of our net. And often there can be this subtle sense of fear, of ungroundedness that comes along with observing our experience dissolve and disappear. Part of what we can do is simply recycle this, if it's arising, into the experience, making sure this is part of our snapshot. If it fades away, lovely. It's something unpleasant disappearing. If it doesn't fade away, we can actually find a kind of stability. Resting in the strange sensation of kind of fear. Not treating it as though it shouldn't be there, because it's simply nature. And if we're experiencing that fear, even subtly in the background, allowing ourselves to rest in that experience. To know that this fear is simply nature. And there's a way in which we can simply rest in the nature of our experience to change, the nature of our experience to have emotions. Noticing that we don't need to do anything. Nature simply moves and dances for us. No need to control anything. And once we get used to this flavor of our current experience simply melting, we can begin to worry less about capturing the present moment and just residing in this ongoing disappearing experience. Letting any fear, any self, letting all of this simply be part of the mist of disappearing self and world. And if it's helpful, we can effectively do our snapshot of all of the gawning experiences together. Just attending to the decaying quality. Allowing everything in every direction to fall into this misty waterfall of disappearing experience. And allowing a tiny bit of light to enter the eyes. Eventually allowing the eyes to rest on one point Stay fully open. And if we can, connecting with this ongoing, gone experience. It's the flip side of our present experience, just watching it disappear. And allowing this moment here, with our eyes open, to be the great teacher that shows us how to do this practice in every moment of our lives. Okay. So what was that like, folks? Making any adjustments you need to allow the body to be comfortable. If folks are joining us, welcome. So welcome to Commander Root, Nick, Jizza, Lewis, Nate W, Ravensbutter, Virgo Praz. I'm probably reading that incorrectly. Windsuck, welcome. So welcome, folks. Hopefully you're having fun. Hopefully that was a nice time. Let me know what happened there. What occurred for you? It can be a little strange doing this, and it also might have been the case that it was challenging to even notice what the heck I was talking about. Tamerlan, thank you for posting our... Oh, that's strange. Let me try something here. Okay, good. We have liftoff here. Lewis says, I like the comparison of dissolution to mist. Sometimes that can get a little sleepy and cloudy too. That's exactly right. So there's a degree to which the down sort of collapsing energy of gone experiences can feel sort of fundamental, like they're actually, excuse me, not even fundamental, they can feel sort of tranquilizing. And so part of that is just to notice and really connect with the experiencing of clarity, knowing that you're knowing this experience at any given point. And yeah, that's the general shape of things. What else came up for folks? I'm sort of feeling slightly daring to get someone on the voice chat, but I don't even know if we're there yet. It shouldn't be a problem. I mean, our other system was like all mucked up, and this shouldn't be a problem if somebody wanted to jump over to the voice stream. So we're going to put the voice chat. Let's see here. I'm going to put the voice chat into the... Oh, sorry, we're going to put the link. So here you'll see 3 links. One is to our voice waiting room, if you've never, or you can just join our Discord in general. And the last one is a little video. If you've never done Discord, it'll show you how to sign up. And then you'll have to jump over into the voice waiting room. So if anyone wants to jump online, we'll see if this works. It's worked probably 5% of the time in the past, but hopefully this entirely new setup will work it out. Oh, right. Thank you, Tamerlan. That link is wrong. We should put that on the list of things to fix. This new setup is also a little more cramped than the previous one, so I'm going to try to work that out. Okay, folks, so let me know if you have any questions, if you have anything else coming up, and if so, Oh, I got a mention up top. Who mentioned? Mark. Okay, great. So I thought you were mentioning me on the stream here. I'm over on Discord. Okay, great. So no pressure if anyone doesn't want to report or doesn't want to jump on the Discord. That's not a problem. I'll actually jump into this little mini lesson we talked about last time about sort of the history of how we got here in mindfulness and how mindfulness is sort of by its nature, mindfulness as we know it today is by its nature somewhat radical. And I'd be curious what folks think, because I haven't actually, I've mentioned this a dozen times, but I haven't actually tried to go through it piece by piece. And I realize I have to, I have to do a run with human beings there, otherwise I can't think it through. I feel like I've organized it as much as I can without getting feedback. Twisting myself into a pretzel into this. I have like a miniature table now that's like compressing me down. Okay. So let's give this a try. Okay, I'm going to jump into this thing. So now you can see what I see. This is what my whole desktop looks like. I'm going to try to go into, oh, here we go. This is what we want to be viewing. So I'm pretty sure, if I'm not mistaken, that folks can see this on their screen. I'm just going to actually escape, make sure that folks could. So just let me know, could you see that on your screen perfectly clearly? If so, just let me know. Yeah, let me know, because otherwise I'll fix something. But if you couldn't see that, let me know. And let me know if I'm audible. Check, check. Okay, the question was A, could you see that a moment ago? And B, was I even audible? And I don't know that I was. Yeah, let me know. Can see clearly, and you could hear me clearly as well? Okay, perfect, perfect. Okay, so we're going to go back. We're going to begin. Okay. Okay, so mindfulness, this is going to be a little history between the beginnings of Buddhist history, which actually goes back further than that, but we'll start then, just as a place to start, and we'll go from there. And then what I want to talk about is how we typically think of these things as sort of pure categories that exist unto themselves. And what we're going to be looking at is how each of these categories is happening in response to its current environment. So let's back up here, how we got here. The Buddha is born somewhere around 600 BCE. And during the Buddha's lifetime, he gives up his sort of princehood, becomes a monastic, so to speak, a wandering mystic, becomes a Brahmin master, and what we might say discovers insight meditation. An important note there is that the Buddha was very, very good at the Brahmin tradition, what's sort of expressed today in current Hinduism. And the Buddha felt like those techniques that were being taught in Hinduism, at least at that time, or I don't want to say Hinduism, Brahmanism, were not enough. And the sort of jhanic material that he was used to didn't bring him to where he recognized that somehow he could get to. And so in his practice, he effectively discovers what we today call insight meditation and moves on from there. And it's worth noting that the truths that we call the noble truths of Buddhism, impermanence, unsatisfactoriness, and non-self, are all actually polemic responses to Brahman truths. And I believe they're called the, I forget what they're called, the three effective truths, something like this. But the Brahman truths were that they were called permanence, true self, and bliss. So the Buddha was saying, oh, no, 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 I have a counter-argument. And so it's important to know that even those three truths are actually a polemic related to the previous iteration of spiritual practice. So somewhere around 300 years after the Buddha is born, his writings are, or his teachings are written down. in the form of what we might call a path of awakening. And the old system to become a enlightened person was to become a monk, become a master of ethics, become a master of doctrine, master the jhanas, and then begin doing insight. And some people still teach this way, but it's a little different than what we're doing here today. So around the same time, the Abhidharma was written, which is a kind of combination of all of these different elements, the Buddhist philosophy, psychology, ethics, and all of this is to serve the process of awakening. A little under 300 years later, the Satipatthana Sutta, which many people might be familiar with, is outlined. It's compiled out of other suttas, and it's an arrangement of foundational mindfulness practices focused on the breath. And typically we talk about the Satipatthana, but it's helpful to know that a Satipatthana is anything that moves from where you are, moving you through various layers, getting you to the classical experience of awakening. So anything could be a Satipatthana. And then 5th century, the Visuddhimagga, which is another commentary on the previous commentary. We have layers of commentary here. It's known as the Path of Purification, and it is an assembly of all of the meditation technologies that were written before, but it's focused primarily on the using kasina as a way to get there. So that's a heavy focus there. And related to this, I think is important, is that in the early 6th century, Bodhidharma arrives in China. So Bodhidharma is the founder. You don't want to say founder because it's probably he's unaware what he was founding, but he's teaching in a way that was very different, in part as a critique of Theravada, the material that had come before. Well, why is that? What is the critique, and how does Zen respond to the supposed problems with Theravada? So Zen is, in many ways, that kind of critique. There is this idea of the sutta master, someone who understood scripture beautifully but did not know awakening. So some of the elements that they were critiquing was that Theravada, meaning the early scriptures of the Buddha, the writings that came about 300 years after his death, that it was very complex, that your average person couldn't have contact with it, that it emphasized understanding over direct experience, and that's sometimes true, but this is the critique, that it requires a great deal of understanding before we begin. And then it separates awakening from ordinary life, because people would have to become monks or really dedicate their entire lives and leave their lay lives, their lives in the world, in order to experience awakening. So this is all partially a critique here. Now, we see this as somewhat relevant today because a lot of these fit with our conception of how we want to live. We want things to be relatively simple. We want to have the experience ourselves, although a lot of people get very fixated on understanding as a way to experience. And then we want to be able to begin right away. We want to have effects immediately, which is also, that's something that Zen critiqued. It also wanted to take a long time, or take all the time it needed to perfect the process. And we also want to live in our ordinary lives. We don't want to have to give up our life in that way. So jumping forward, we have another sort of thing occurring here, which is that around the 16th, 17th centuries, Europe begins to invade Asia. So Dutch, French, Portuguese, Spanish, and British colonizers start entering Southeast Asia and bringing in Christian missionaries. So this is a very interesting turning point. What do Christian missionaries have to do with mindfulness today? Well, you may be very surprised, but they have a great deal to do with mindfulness today. So 1824, British invade Myanmar. So Sri Lanka, Thailand, and Myanmar develop novel strategies to fight off Christian conversion. They're all terrified that their cultures and religions will be overtaken by Christian missionaries of one kind or another. So each comes up with its own strategy. Thailand, the strategy was general orthodoxy. So this is a strategy of institutional conservation. The monks would hold the most traditional practices as they understood them and shun anything that contradicted their interpretation of doctrine, meaning they would try to exist as closely as they could to what they understood as the oldest doctrine living to the letter of the law. And if they did that, they felt they could defend themselves against missionaries. They would be too orthodox for themselves to be overtaken. In Sri Lanka, the strategy was scholarship. So it's to bring scholarship up and beyond any Western scholarship and fortify the development as an authority on the grasp of the traditional text, including the Visuddhimagga. So there's some controversy over whether the Visuddhimagga should be included in these texts, and the scholars from Sri Lanka said, we don't care, we think this is traditional, and we want that to be part of our scholarship. Now, Burma does something pretty radical. So we see here Burma is located right next to Thailand. It has a very different strategy. So in 1846 to 1923, Ledi Sayadaw lives and is a very, very influential teacher. Many people forget that he or don't know about him, but he actually is a precursor to Mahasi Sayadaw, which some of you may know. And so he lives and he asks this question, what if we taught the tools of awakening to large numbers of people? Now, this had never been done. Yes, it's true that some lay people had, hung out with the monastics and done that work and had an awakening experience, but there was never the idea that we could teach it to large numbers of people, in large part because it wasn't really possible. But there was new technology out there, new things that were coming up to the foreground that was radical technology that no one had ever used or seen before. So their idea was to use this modern tech to teach large numbers of people the tools of awakening, which had not been done previously. So this is Ledi Sayadaw. So he used cutting-edge technology at the time and taught people to observe impermanence as a way to make it possible for people to practice throughout life. So rather than solidifying around the stabilization practices and the jhanas, he said, let's look at impermanence all the time. So the big new technologies that he took advantage of was two things. One, the printing press, and two, the locomotive. So previously to this, the only way to get to a teacher was to walk to them or to, find an animal or a group that would take you there. And often they're very secluded. And you would have to sort of give yourself over to the monastery, and that would be, a big portion of your life. But what they realized they could do is actually bring people to the monastery, or they could actually bring the monks somewhere else, and they could have what would be called this new thing, new use of this term, which would be called retreat. And they began to estimate, what is the minimum amount of time that you could move someone from being a layperson to awakening? And the guesstimate was 3 months. We could do it in 3 months. It reminds me of if anyone's ever seen Arrested Development, there's a line where it says we can do it in 2 weeks. So they're like, we can do this in 2 months. So after that, we have the well-known Mahasi Sayadaw, who lives until the 1980s, which is very recent. He writes the Manual of Insight. It's worth noting, actually, before that, Ledi Sayadaw actually wrote the Manual of Ultimate Truth and the Manual of Dharma. So there's no real records showing that these two had contact, but it would be nearly impossible, given what Mahasi did, using impermanence as a primary tool, the way he wrote all of these things, that he wasn't very clearly influenced by Ledi Sayadaw, because the timeline and everything overlaps too much. Burma's not a very big place, especially when you're in the world of Sayadaws. So he writes the Manual of Insight, one chapter of which is the Progress of Insight. This is a chapter which is primarily intended for teachers, but after his death, other people translate that and have students reading that, and that's sort of where we're at to some degree today. And after his death, teachers downplay Mahasi's emphasis on metta practice and heart practice. So if you're in one of our courses right now, you know that we've begun teaching metta practice that might seem a little different than the usual metta practice you're used to. And as far as we understand, this is the metta practice that's closer to what Mahasi taught. And he typically would teach this practice for 2 months prior to the normal 3-month retreat. So Today we think, oh, these long retreats, we're supposed to just do lots of insight practice. But he had a 2 to 3 ratio of heart practice prior to doing the insight practice. So that's when people get very destabilized and wonder, is this what Mahasi intended? The chances are not so much. So then in the 60s and 70s, we have these large groups of people sort of traveling to Asia, studying there, coming back. And so there's 3 main groups that we could say strongly influence where we are today. So Shinzen travels to Asia, becomes a monastic, and eventually studies in all 3 of the Buddhist vehicles, meaning he studies in Theravada, Mahayana, and Vajrayana. He actually does those in reverse order, which is sort of interesting. And that's his experience, but he just sort of stays in Asia. A lot of people go and come back, and he just stays for quite some time. And then we have the kind of classic people who started the large retreat centers, Joseph Goldstein, Jack Kornfield, Sharon Salzberg. And they come back and bring a lot of what they have experienced and create something called the Insight Meditation Center. Some of you know as a large center here in the United States. And a neuroscientist, I believe, he was originally a neuroscientist, begins doing retreats at IMS, has some pretty intense experiences, and figures he could probably create something that could bring this to the masses in a different way. This is an expansion of Letty's vision, that this could be given to the masses in the form of what's called mindfulness-based stress reduction. And I don't think Letty Sayadaw really had the idea that if he really worked hard, then, not only everyone in Burma would have contact with these teachings, which, if you don't know, in Burma, it's sort of standard for every person to go to a 2-week retreat twice in their life, as a child and after graduating what's considered like high school. So it's very much part of the culture. That vision is probably in his scope, but the idea that this would be taught in some form in every hospital in the country, or many hospitals in the country, or taught to American veterans and elderly people and people with physical ailments, these kind of things. That idea is maybe beyond his scope, but maybe not. We don't know. Maybe he had that idea. So 2005, a well-known book, The Science of Enlightenment, is published. It's an audiobook, and it explores trying to create a universal language for awakening. In 2008, a book some of you may know, Mastering the Core Teachings of the Buddha, is published, and it popularizes the term stream entry and emphasizes the dark night material, the things that might go wrong on the path, and helps people sort of normalize those experiences. And this brings us to the end of our slideshow. But what I want to emphasize here is just notice that each of these things is in response to its current environment, and we're in a place now where we're experiencing something that hasn't happened before. We now have contact with human beings who are doing this material, who are experiencing this material at a level that is sort of unheard of. And let's see. And that's, the audio is gone. Okay, hopefully we're back. Yeah, that is the sort of general shape of things. So today we have this level of contact with each other that is sort of untold, unheard of. That is quite amazing. So let me just check with this audio issue. Okay. So how are we doing now? Can folks hear me? Let me know if I'm visible, audible. Okay, great. Came back shortly after. Good. So when that did happen, I backtracked. So hopefully you heard everything, and hopefully you could see the. Okay, great, good. So okay, so folks, what do folks think, or what are your thoughts? Because of the audio thing went wrong, I stopped. My mind sort of blanked out, and I was like, wait, what's the punchline here? So the punchline is that we're actually at this incredible crossroads now, where all of these different parts are coming together. So the Western tendency and interest in sort of things being understandable, scientific, and explainable is combining with this sort of radical need to stop Christian missionaries, is combining with this sort of popularization of sort of very basic introductory mindfulness, is combining with the general case that once there's enough people who are doing something, there's people who want to dive much deeper, sort of at this core level. And all of these things are coming together to basically put us where we are today at this moment. So we're in a very real historical moment. And I think it's important to remember that what we experience in our practice, we're actually pioneers. We're actually looking for something that is very, very old. But part of what we're doing is looking for it in a way that we can mix it into our daily lives, a little bit similar to the way Zen talked about it, and something that we can potentially pass along in the way that we relate to this material, hopefully maybe using some of our Western tendencies and interests, like getting rid of some of the sort of mystical schmystical stuff, but also hopefully having enough sensitivity to recognize that maybe there's actually value in that we have missed. And that's sort of another current wave, is people recognizing, wait a minute, so we kind of came over and stripped out the awakening part, and we stripped out the morality part, and now we're just going to teach people sort of general mindfulness. And when you talk to people, they're like, oh, you're a mindfulness teacher? I really need to, get less stress. And it's like, well, that's cool, but I think you might be missing something here, because this is actually about awakening. So yeah, about that. So it's part of our job is to, rather than fight this idea of mindfulness, which I think can be popular in some groups where they say, well, it doesn't have these things, is, ethics and, these kind of things, is to define mindfulness and say mindfulness actually absolutely includes ethics, absolutely includes awakening. And it's basically a way to communicate this material, all of this material, to people who don't necessarily want to be Buddhist by nature. And I fit into that camp. So tell me, folks, what are your thoughts? How did that sound for you? Any thoughts, any additions, anything you want to change, or anything you want to connect with here? We have Frank who says, yes, you don't see the slides, just the normal streaming setup. Oh no, you didn't see the slides. Well, hopefully it was clear enough. I was reading what was happening on the slides as well. Yeah, it's true that the West does have a lot of problems with awakening, although it's really changing rapidly. Do I have a good, concise definition? No, I don't. And we're moving in that direction, but we definitely are not there by any means. We might not even get there in our lifetimes, but we're moving in that direction. And there's a lot of people, especially with the popularity of like psychedelics and these kind of things, these movements, people are actually really getting interested in this stuff. And the description that I've seen, which I think is quite awesome, is, let's see, I just want to check, make sure. Okay. So the description that I've seen, which is really excellent, is basically when you talk about psychedelics, and this is the metaphor that I like psychedelics is like a helicopter, and they'll say, okay, get in, and we're going to take you to the top of the mountain. They get in, they shoot you up to the top of the mountain, and say, here you are. And now the view is amazing. Like, wow, this is incredible. And then they sort of, get you, and they fly you to another mountaintop, and then they zip you down. And you're like, whoa, that was such an amazing view. This must be the answer to, freedom in the world, and this is the direction I should go. And the issue is that that's different than if you learn how to climb the mountain. And if you learn how to climb the mountain, what that means is you get to the top and you have the skills to apply those to any part of your life, and you get the view. And that's sort of the fundamental difference, is having the skill to repeat the process on your own, bring other people there, guide others, talk about your experience in incredible detail, talk about the sort of incremental pieces that one would need to use in order to move in this direction. I often will mention Eckhart Tolle, who is, I talked to Shinzen about it, and, basically the short version of the story is Shinzen's like, yeah, he's clearly a very awakened being. Like, you can tell that he's very altered from the experiences around awakening. However, he doesn't know how to get there, because he just was basically internally, his system just shot him to the top of the mountain. So when he talks to people, he can talk about the terrain and the detail, but it's almost like retroactively trying to reverse engineer how he got there, and he got there suddenly, he had a sudden awakening experience. So it's hard to translate that. And so it's often easier to learn from people who struggled slowly, bit by bit by bit, to move up this path. And so they can show you incremental things. Well, hey, at this point you can do this, and this point you can do this, and this point, don't take that road because it's going to lead you to this, and it's going to be you're just going to have to backtrack anyway, that kind of thing. And personally, that's what I gravitate towards quite a bit. So I was talking with somebody recently about what was I going to say, whether or not to whether they should do practices that create more, or they're feeling a little unstable. Should they go and keep going in that, or should they stabilize in this way, in the way that we were talking about with the metta practice that Mahasi taught? And my general thing was, well, it just depends. Like, could you be more unstable in your life? Look around your life. Like, take that instability, apply it to caring for your kids or doing your job or whatever that is. Could you be more unstable and you'd actually be fine? And you really have to be honest with yourself, because you don't win any prizes by, ruining your life, unfortunately. That'd be great, right? You win a prize, you're just like, oh, your life is the most, chaotic and alienated. Wonderful. Congrats, you did it. So yeah, that's my general answer to that. Do I have a definition of awakening? What else, folks? I'm going to double check something real quick. I think Raquel's returned. I'm going to turn this down. Hey, babe. Maybe she's not here. I thought she was here and she had a student coming up, so I got to be careful. Okay. Okay, folks, anything else? I want to make sure everyone's having a good time, and then we'll call it a quit. Call it a quit? Well, you'll be acquitted of all of your crimes. I knew it. I knew you did some crimes. You really did it this time, you son of a... Every time I let you alone, God damn it. A little tough muttering. We like to end every one of the streams with a little tough muttering. So, that is what we have for today. Folks, it was great to see you here. Thank you. If there's any requests or questions or any of those things, let us know, of course, as always. What I would like to do is make you a little wish. I wish that you today are able to connect with the beautiful arising and beautiful passing experience of your present moment, and to bring that into all aspects of your life in that way. So I realize I haven't even put on the closing thing yet. I haven't even programmed that in. I got as far as to get everything except for the closing. So I'm going to crack that open right now. So folks, lovely to see you. Let me know, let me know if you have any requests. Oh, P.S. I think I'm not going to do a stream on Christmas, which is next Wednesday. So people had wanted me to do that, and I think I should not do that. So that's the general shape of things. Okay. I'm going to put these pieces together. Put it together. Get it together, God damn it. This is just an image. Okay. So folks, great to see you here. Thank you for coming. Thank you for being here with us, as always. I'm slowly, piece by piece, building the our outro music, because I didn't even have time to get to this place. So, let's see here. Who should we put in there? Let's put this in there for fun. This is not that's not the outro image we're used to. We'll do it for fun. So folks, great to see you. Let's make this transition just for fun. Okay. Wait, why isn't it playing? You're supposed to be an animated GIF. Oh, it's a ding dang JPEG. All right, I'm going to lose this thing. How about that? Okay. This guy, cutie. Should I wear this for Christmas or this for Hanukkah? This for Christmas or this for Hanukkah? Okay, folks, great to see you. Lovely to have you here. Thank you again for joining. Have a lovely day. Have fun with friends. Don't forget to be kind to your loved ones. Can't find the music, so I'm just going to put this in there. See if that is off.